Okay, we're looking at the organisation issues around a project, and one of the big issues is communication, and the team being in the same location can assist in those communications. Now, I'm going to argue that communication is the second reason why projects fail. And when I ask people why projects don't always succeed properly, they say a lack of communication or poor communication or there was no communication. Communication channels we used were ineffective. So it's really important that we set up communication correctly on our project. I would argue that the more communication you have, the more chance of project success. And has anybody ever said to you, please stop communicating, you're communicating too much? And maybe you need to keep communicating until they say that. When we're planning our project, communication should not be left to chance. It should be planned into the project. So let's go back to our work breakdown structure, which is full of the tasks of building, designing, constructing, ordering, testing. And now let's add in some tasks about communication, about writing reports and holding meetings and issuing newsletters and updating websites. I could argue that communication is the project leader's single most important task. If nobody knows what's happening on the project, they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. One of the key duties of the project manager is communication. So let's just think about communication, because sometimes communication can be one way and sometimes it can be two way. If I issue an email, I'm talking to somebody, but I don't know whether they've received the email, read the email, or agree with the email. It's one-way communication. If I deal with that face-to-face, then I can actually see them and they're debating. They say, I don't think that's the right thing to do. And so we're in two-way communication here. Telephone call would be a two-way method. Of course, a telephone call and face-to-face communication is instant, it's direct. Whereas emails or reports that are paper-based, website updates, they are subject to a delay. When we're having that face-to-face or telephone conversation or maybe Skype conversation, we can understand the tone of voice. We can see people's body language, their posture. We're picking up non-verbal clues. Famous studies show that the message is delivered by the words as only a fraction, but by the tone of voice and the body language, much greater. I could look at a student who comes in late to the lecture and say, excuse me, can you tell me, why were you late? Or I could say, why were you late? And the body language and the tone of voice puts a completely different message on it. So here are two tools that will help us plan communication for our project. They're both matrices. In this matrix, across the top, we have who do we need to communicate to? And down the side, we have how are we going to communicate? And then we choose at least two methods of communication for each recipient, in case one method fails. And as we're doing this, we're thinking, is this one-way communication? Is this two-way communication? Is this going to get instant feedback, instant comments? Or, if I'm posting something, then they don't agree with it. They've got every right to post their reply back to me. So this is a matrix of how we're communicating and who is going to get the communication. It's not complete. You need to look at those methods down the left-hand side and think, yeah, I'm going to use fax machines. I'm going to use posters. I'm going to use newsletters. I'm going to create a website. I'm going to put RSS feeds on my website to keep people informed of what's happening. In this second matrix, we're looking at what we're communicating and how often we're communicating. And this is very useful to see how often the communication is happening. So there could be daily communications for some things, weekly communications. And what you're saying is that I've decided that the senior management need monthly reviews. So go and book it in the calendar to make sure it happens once every month. If one or two are cancelled, It doesn't matter. At least they're all booked in. It's when you only book them when you think you need them that problems arrive. So 2 communication matrices, 2 tools to help you communicate on your projects. However, one of the biggest things you can do to get your project team communicating is to get them all working at the same location. Now, I've worked in project teams for international companies where some of the people are in Munich, in BMW. Or I've worked on research projects where we have partners in Ireland and France and Germany. You can't get everybody at the same location. It's too expensive. However, to help increase this communication and to develop the sense of a project identity and a project team spirit, if we can get people at the same location, then we attempt to do this. It's not always possible. And then it's your job as project manager to do this wandering around, trying to link your project team up. I've worked in situations where I've had people working for me in Birmingham or Oxford or Coventry. And as manager, it was sort of my job to go and visit them and to find out what their problems were. And the guy in Birmingham says, "Oh, I don't think the guy in Oxford's doing what he should." And I say, "Well, you get on with your job. I'll deal with that." So the next day I'm off down to Oxford trying to understand what the issues are. And I'm becoming the glue that is holding my project team together. And when we do have team meetings, we rotate them around. Some of them are at Birmingham, some of them are in Coventry, some of them are in Oxford. And we all get to know each other. Now, if you've been allocated to do a project in an organization that is mainly functional, then I suggest that you ask for a location for your project team. Remember, in this organization, you are the only project manager. It's an important project. The boss has said, this is so important, we're going to devote a project manager to it. The department heads won't like it. They're losing some of their power here. So you need to establish your authority and say, great, I'll take this job, but I want a project office. I want all of those engineers working for me in the same location. And this should help prevent that miscommunication, those chains of commands. Puts a focus onto the project. Look, for large organizations, multi-site, international, it's not always possible to get people co-located. The internet and Skype and webcams and FaceTime have enabled us to improve our communication methods. However, I've still been in meetings that are video conferences where the camera is looking at one person who's saying, yes, we can do that. Yes, I'll sort that out in the next 2 weeks. And the body language around the table, which the camera isn't seeing, are people going, it's never going to work. It's going to take longer than 3 weeks. So you can miss out on these non-verbal clues when you have video conferencing. So set up your email distribution lists, set up your discussion forums, set up your web pages. There are many tools on the internet for communicating, social pages and other websites dedicated to bringing the project team together in the virtual world.